Well, hello, that's me again. Today is July 25th. It is Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everybody. And let's start with a little bit of the C-trap, if you wish. And we will start with the fact that Mr. Manturov, who is Russia's industry minister, as you can see yourself, it's in Russian media all over the place, and he was talking to number of the media, and obviously he was making reports to his higher-ups, which of course is Mr. Mishustin and Mr. Putin, and here what he reveals. And that gives us understanding, very good understanding of what is happening now operationally and tactically. And here's Mr. Manturov says that since the beginning of this year, for many types of weapons and special equipment, much more has already been produced than for the whole of the last year. Now, he is also talking then about all kinds of munitions, ranging from 152 millimeter shells to what have you. And he's talking about like this. In total, taking into account the deployed capacities, we need more than 16,000 specialists only for organization to ensure the supply. And of course, he has already stated that in terms of munition, Russia produces now in months, in a single month, that means between 30 and 31 days, then it produced in the whole 2022, the whole year. So that tells you actually the immense industrial capacity of Russia. But again, I warned about it. I wrote about it so many times that, and when you look at my books, I'm constantly on record that, for example, Wall Street or CIA, they really don't have any idea what they are dealing with, and this is not some kind of schadenfreude on my part. Hell with it, yeah, it is schadenfreude, I'm enjoying my moment under the sun, seeing those guys, running like the headless chickens, trying to figure out how they ended up in the situation which they ended up with. And if you look attentively at the not only Manturov statements, you can actually look at how they try to really, those guys in all those think tanks, try to kind of, explain things why they're going badly. And they are going badly. Russian army today took Sergeyevka, and again, I am not describing here anything which has some necessary label of some kind of insight that, ooh, I have some insights which I'm going to disclose to you. No, there's no insight. It is clear that Russians will not attack their very seriously fortified areas. They will bypass them. And again, if you look attentively now at the disposition of forces and ratio of forces, actually Ukraine, or whatever you call it today, they still can master a lot of cannon fodder. I mean, it's cannon fodder, literally. You have people of the ages 50 and up who are being literally prodded with the bayonets, if you wish, into the battle with Russia. Well, in reality, it's not even the battle, it's slaughter. And of course, we have the situation which we basically repeat ad nauseam right now, that the United States and not NATO as a whole cannot even provide anymore for any kind of serious equipment for Ukraine. It will not be enough, no matter what they do. The same goes for the F-16s. And of course, there's a lot of talk now about F-16s. Then, of course, Mr. Blinken says that it will take many months to deliver them. Russians say, hey, you deliver them, you know what, if you F-16 is the fighter which is capable of carrying the gravitational bombs. It's B-61, I believe. Some people say they are planning, up to 20 kilometers, but it doesn't matter. I mean, one way or another, in order for it to deploy or drop their nuclear munition, they will need to be within the air defense zone of Russia, for example, and you know how it works. So I don't think so we can seriously discuss the issue of United States somehow providing nuclear weapons to Ukraine, or actually deploying nuclear weapons on some F-16s which will be flown by the American or other NATO pilots. It's all probably a little bit far-fetched, but point is, Mr. Lavrov, who is a outstanding diplomat of our century, he obviously played on that, and he said, you know what, we will be viewing this situation with F-16s, if they ever get to Ukraine, as the serious nuclear threat. So, but Russia is not going to use the nuclear weapons, unlike it is stated, and this is very important, in the Rand's paper, which saw circulation about, I think so, it's January actually. You can look it up. It's all about costs. And look what the scenarios Rand produced. That was obviously during the very this ambivalent or ambiguous situation during January this year, and still already then those people, those shysters with the political science degree and all kinds of garbage soft degrees, they decided to kind of put together some kind of the table. And look at this. The thing about this Rand paper is that they talk about avoiding the long war, because they are afraid of the long war. And as we already now, we're having the ability of our capability of hindsight and advantage of the hindsight, we can look today if on the 25th of July back and see that and actually laugh. They do, however, when trying to tabulate the costs of this, of the long war for the United States, they come up with this highly significant cost. There would be a prolonged elevated risk of Russian nuclear use and NATO-Russian war. So evidently people who write this, which you would expect from the so-called American scholars, quote unquote, they will continue to push this idiotic agenda that Russia needs to use the nuclear weapons. Russia doesn't need to use the nuclear weapons because it's outproduces all NATO combined, probably not just many times, but now a single order of magnitude in terms of the ammunition and other things of such nature as standoff weaponry. Then he talks about explanation. Avoiding these two forms of escalation is paramount U.S. priority. Well, that's probably the priority, but United States cannot lead here because it was outplayed strategically, it was defeated strategically, and now it plays the way Russia wants it to play militarily. Russia wants to demilitarize NATO and is doing this, as I speak to you, really well. This is not some kind of Russian rah-rah, it's just the way it is. So, and then of course moderately significant costs, they talk about that the United States would be less able to focus on other global priorities. We know what those global priorities, or priority if you wish, are. This is of course China, and many people say that, hey, Russia was kind of, you know what, remove Russia, this is American strategy, quote unquote, and again I quote Mr. Alexander Rogers, that Americans cannot do, I mean modern America cannot do strategies, it can do business plans. So the business plan was remove Russia from the back of China. It was easy, they thought, and then, you know, just strangle China. Well, look what they write. U.S. resources, forces, and senior leader attention are not being devoted to other U.S. priorities, to China, meaning, of course. Then, of course, they talk about moderately significant costs, which is an ongoing freeze in U.S.-Russia relations, would pose challenges to other U.S. priorities. Repeating same thing about, which is euphemism for China. And then, of course, they say, about bilateral or multilateral interaction with Russia on key U.S. interests will be highly contentious while the war is ongoing. No, it's not going to be contentious. I mean, United States doesn't have guts enough to declare war on Russia. They know what it means. So what they do, I mean, they will be playing this, you know, proxy war and hiding behind the proxy. And until this proxy is basically, which already happened, destroyed, and then everybody will be looking at the end game. So, and that's what they say. The cost for the United States and the European Union of keeping Ukrainian state economically solvent will multiply over time as conflict inhibits investment and production. Ukrainian refugees remain unable to return, and as a result, tax revenue and economic activity drop dramatically lower than before the war. Well, that is correct, and this is exactly what Russia is doing in terms of actually not only annihilating Kiev regime, which is Russia is doing really well. But it's also basically demilitarizing and the economizing, so to speak, of the combined West, which unleashed this criminal warfare on Russia and Russian population. And you know what? It's the wrong people to screw with, really, really wrong people and wrong country. And when you look at this, and especially when you look at, I already gave his biography, who was the leading honcho on writing this crap is Mr. Charap. And look at this. I already spoke about this many times, but here it is. Mr. Charap, Samuel Charap, is PhD in political science. That means he doesn't have any education. University of Oxford, Master of Philosophy in Russian and East European Studies. And again, there is no viable Russian and East European Studies field in the West. So, and he supposedly speaks Russian. He has been in Moscow. Well, good luck with this guy grasping what kind of garbage they produce, because actually, as I already has shown to you, the only thing they got right was the fact that, but then again, Russia is pretty much open since the December 2021 with ultimatum what Russia is going to do with combined West, not just with Ukraine. And again, do not forget, Ukraine is the best proxy that combined West ever had. I mean, unless, of course, the West wants to fight it's directly with Russia. But I have the feeling, and that obviously this is not the case, they do not want to do this. Although we're going to be talking about some people who really do. Obviously, as you understand, the policy or politics of the state and opinions of the other people, just individuals, they're a little bit two different things. But let's talk about the opinions of those two individuals. And the individual is, of course, Mr. James Stavridis, the admiral, used to be supreme commander of the NATO forces in Europe, obviously, and as it was already stated in the foreign policy 4 days ago about Russia declares war on wheat, peas, and barley. Well, Mr. Stavridis, actually, who also graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis with, get that, no less than degree in literature. So I don't know how you can manage to do that, graduating Naval Academy. I graduated Naval Academy. It's obviously much wider and longer in terms of study than a very distinguished institution, at least it used to be, and in U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. I have degree in warfare, essentially. I have engineering degree, and so when you look at this, how the heck can you get the degree in literature? Okay, whatever, so, but again, he is the guy who is very advanced, evidently, by all kinds, those universities and, degree meals about the foreign policy and diplomacy and what have you, but of course he is not. And the question here is not that he obviously wants to sink Russian ships, and he has some issues of geography, but his idea is because Russia not only are actually essentially beginning the blockade of Ukraine, she also attacked the ports of on the Danube, including Ismail, where it's essentially blew up not just grain storage. It's not true. They definitely suffered a little bit, but primarily the target, which was very successfully accomplished, was the storages of the military equipment, which have been delivered to Ukraine by all those honest and, in good faith, I'm being sarcastic, of course, NATO countries. In reality, of course, the grain deal was used for the delivery of the weapons to Ukraine. Now it is impossible. And right now there are more than 50 ships standing on Danube, not being able to basically moor themselves in on any port on the Danube on the Ukrainian side. Well, it is what it is. I mean, that's the whole idea behind quitting the grain deal and then starting cutting Ukraine out of its supply routes, and it's already having an effect. However, Mr. Stavridis, being the having degree in literature and having degree in whatever from Tufts University, he has some issues with the geography and of course capabilities of Russia Black Sea Fleet, or generally what would amount to the Southern Military District. Here's the idea. It's very primitive. As you can see yourself, the idea that, as Stavridis says, okay, let's move the NATO ships, which will be escorting those ships with the grain. Well, not grain, really. There will be many weapons. That's the idea. They want to ship weapons to Ukraine through Odessa and through Ismail and through other number of the ports which they can find there. But the point is that you can do that, for example, if you theoretically get some ships, NATO ships, including American ships, in the 12-mile territorial waters of basically Bulgaria and Romania. No problem. Russians, as they say, that any ship which ships anything to Ukraine will be viewed as the potential target. Well, they are free to do this whatever they want. And they even can, move whatever, however they want beyond the territorial waters, because, international waters in the Black Sea. But look at this. Once you get to the basically territorial waters of Ukraine, and as you can see yourself, it's 12 miles. Then I give roughly the contour, so to speak, how it looks like. And the brown line is approximately how Russia is de facto establishing the naval blockade of Ukraine. So one has to think twice. How you gonna penetrate it into the blockaded territorial waters of Ukraine? Well, it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna be basically violating the rules, essentially, which Russian Navy establishes there. And obviously, as Mr. Putin stated, and Mr. Putin certainly is much bigger honcho than Mr. Stavridis, Russians will be targeting those ships. They can stop them, they can target them, they can sink them. And it doesn't matter what kind of ships will be there. If Mr. Stavridis thinks that even US Navy can escort them in the blockaded territorial waters of Ukraine or whatever is left of it. And here comes the question. Stavridis wants to actually sink Russian ships of the Black Sea Fleet. And this is all fine and dandy. The problem is, of course, is Mr. Stavridis evidently has issues with the salvo models, and evidently with his degree in literature, he doesn't understand that this is not 1992 or 1995. And here's what I needed to actually remind him and those people who support him, what it looks like today. And no, theoretically they can attack Russian ships. No, make no mistake, it's fine. We understand that if somebody wants to conduct their, naval warfare in the Black Sea against Russian Navy, against Russian Black Sea Fleet, we'll talk about it shortly, but here it is. Actually, already in 2017, just by looking at their forces which have been deployed in Syria, as you can see yourself, you already have some really interesting things happening in Syria. Keep this in mind, this is just Syria. But if you can look at for example, at the base of the Aktubinsk, you can see those red, silhouettes of the MiG-31Ks carrying Kinzhals. As you can see yourself, Russians cover with the MiG-31K carrying Kinzhals flying out of the airbase at Aktubinsk, not only the whole of the Black Sea, but pretty much all of the Eastern Mediterranean. So if Mr. Stavridis wants to try his luck against the hypersonic missiles of Russian armed forces, certainly he can do that. But this actually picture belongs to 2017, but it also gives you a little bit of the understanding of the ranges, as you can see yourself, as S-400 and S-300s, which are located in Syria. So mentally move those circles to the Crimea, and you will see yourself that Crimea is basically a barrel where any NATO fish will be sunk. Doesn't matter how many. And here we come to the issue of the Russian ships in the Black Sea Fleet. I'm already on record that the first salvo from the ships of the Black Sea Fleet, and this is primarily missile, ranging from missile boats to corvettes to frigates to actually submarines. It can basically rack up in the first salvo alone, and we're not talking about the separate regiment of the attack aircraft such as Su-37, Su-30SM and Su-24M, which are capable of carrying all kinds of funny munitions, ranging from the gliding bombs to obviously long-range anti-shipping missiles. But when you look at this, even the first salvo of those forces against any kind of the escort force of NATO, which will be violating the blockade essentially, can amount to around 100 missiles, anti-shipping missiles in the first flight. But then, of course, Mr. Stavridis evidently never heard about this. And Russia has also in the Crimea, this is what Mr. Stavridis wants to fight. He wants to fight this unsinkable aircraft carrier, or rather many aircraft carriers which Crimea represent out of itself, that actually not only he will be facing their very serious air defense, which will mitigate any kind of the attempts of fighting or sinking Russian ships, but here we have also the other story, apart from the other those, flying objects, so to speak, the aircraft capable of carrying all kinds of munition and especially hypersonic weapons. And this is, of course, what is called 11th and 15th Brigades of the coastal missile forces of Russian Federation there in the Black Sea Fleet. What those brigades are, and you might already know many of them. For example, this is the Bastion launcher. For example, 11th Brigade, both brigades actually, both 11th and 15th have 12 launchers of the Bastion, which is the P-800 Onyx missiles each. When you look at these launchers, they have two containers they carry. So if they have together 12 one brigade, 12 the other, so multiply 24 and then multiply it by 2, and you have 48 missiles of the Onyx class P-800 supersonic, very low flying, very undetectable missiles just from these carriers alone. So good luck repulsing, forget about 48, good luck repulsing 10 Onyxes, which will be flying for those people who want to sink Russian ships in the Black Sea Fleet. But then, of course, the 15th Brigade has not only that, they have this. As you can see yourself, there are some really funny looking vehicles, and then of course we can go and take a look at what the BAL missile system is. It is also another coastal missile force thingy. Russians, the 15th Brigade has in Crimea 4 launchers of that, each of 8. This is 32 missiles in the first salvo, and those missiles are long range also. They used to have 260-kilometer range, which is still more than enough to cover any kind of the territorial waters of Ukraine. But we can also see this is the new version of the X-35 which means усовершенствованная, improved, which went from 260-kilometer range to 550. So altogether, when you begin to look at this, that any NATO force which wants to decide and commit suicide, I don't know, you can send whatever, 10 Arleigh class frigates. This is the only thing United States can send there. Don't tell me that they can send LCS as a joke, basically. So how are they going to fight it? I mean, and again, we're talking about first salvo altogether, I don't know, what, 250 missiles maybe? I mean, if you look at the air forces, which will be immediately in the air, and again, you don't even need to do that. What will be enough for MiG-31Ks flying from the Akhtubiansk airfield carrying 4 Kinzhals? And this is basically, and then the salvo of one of the frigates of the Russian Navy or Black Sea Fleet, or a couple of subs of this shooting calibers, 3M54 anti-shipping missiles with the range of the 600 kilometers. Onyx, for example, has the range in excess of 800 kilometers. What are they going to do? What are they going to use? What, Aegis thing? It's not going to see most of it anyway, and it cannot stop any kind of hypersonic weapon, let alone mitigate or seriously repulse, the salvo of the supersonic missiles. I don't know how Mr. Stavridis wants to fight it. Of course, I am on record. I write about books about it, that it is not Russia. It is projection, American projection on Russia, that Russia somehow will use nuclear weapon. But actually, it is the United States which used it, and actually in practice, ask Hiroshima and Nagasaki residents, although believe me, they are being brainwashed to such a degree that at some point of time they will believe that these were Russians who bombed those Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But the truth is, United States is nuclear-biased nation. Look at the Korean War and MacArthur, why he was removed. He wanted to use nuclear weapons in Korea. You had other people in Vietnam who wanted to use nuclear weapons. When you look at this, United States is a nuclear-biased nation. The reason it is nuclear-biased nation because it's lost every single war in the 20th century after the World War II. And there are always consideration to use nuclear weapons because it was losing it in a conventional way. There's no difference, and again, we can recall the basically Vietnam. But in Russia, Russia is not Vietnam with all my deepest respect at the toughness and abilities of the Vietnamese people who defeated United States. I'm talking about this is a completely different game. So United States is nuclearly biased nation. They are ready to use nukes because obviously, as it was the case with during Cold War in these massive East European armies of the Soviet Union, of Warsaw Pact also, which essentially this is in the documents. You don't have to look, believe me on my word. Look it up. It's all there. Maybe maximum they would hold the line. All those Bundeswehr and armed forces, and the U.S. forces, UK forces, French forces, they would hold it probably 5-6 days. Then guess what happens? They will use nukes because they will be being defeated on the battlefield by those massive armored armies. The same is happening now. But this time United States exercised the idea that using the best proxy they ever had, they can basically, devastate Russia, involve her in this ongoing conflict. But in reality, while they were thinking that ongoing conflict is going to bankrupt Russia, totally opposite, 180 degrees opposite, or using Annalina's Baerbock mathematics and geometry, 360 degrees opposite situation is happening to the United States and to Europe. And when you look at this, look at the economic situation in the combined West. Look at the Wall Street Journal, the article today about how they actually do the Schadenfreude about how Europe is becoming poor. But the point is, United States also is becoming poor. And again, conventionally, United States is not a peer to Russia in Europe, including naval forces, because many people do not understand and use still those early 20th century geopolitics view about those armadas of the battleships and aircraft carriers, like people just complain that, oh yeah, now they enclosed Russian Baltic fleet in the Gulf of Finland. It doesn't matter. Look at the ranges of the modern missiles. Look at the salvos. Look at what is happening in terms of the ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance complex. And when you put those numbers together, yeah, let them try. Good luck trying. And if Mr. Stavridis wants to actually push United States closer to the nuclear escalation, because United States will escalate, because its fleet, if to imagine that some idiot listens to what Mr. Stavridis offers, and he basically offers for United States to lose thousands of their sailors and number of ships. Guess what is going to happen then? It's going to happen, well, I can tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be a most severest political crisis within the United States since World War II. And there will be pressure to go nuclear because they cannot do anything. It doesn't matter how many Arleigh class or how many other NATO ships will be sunk there. No matter how they try to replenish this, they will not be able to do it. They will be sunk and they cannot be replenished. So I would suggest Mr. Stavridis to concentrate on his literature degree obtained from the U.S. Naval Academy and start writing some fictional books, not trying to pretend that he understands the modern situation and how it develops. And I'm on the record, the modern top brass, American top brass, and not only Americans, NATO in general top brass, Not all of it, of course. There are many competent officers and people in the American intelligence community too, but they do not have their voice heard. What we have those propagandists of the top brass, all those four-star generals and admirals, people who have no clue what they're observing because they never have been taught of that. They have been taught about that America basically saved the whole world in World War II. Well, they better start learning the real history, especially the history of the combined arms, and especially looking at the modern technological paradigm, and how the basically mythology of the Western weapons have been completely destroyed in the most, radical manner. And everybody understands that who has any degree of their brain functions left in their brains. So, and this is what we have today. And when you look and begin to at all that and begin to compare the, so to speak, forces which are engaged, I don't know how Mr. Stavridis wants to fight this kind of war. He better read again famous Wayne Hughes, late Wayne Hughes, brilliant book about the naval tactics and the coastal combat, and about missile paradigm. And United States is being outproduced by Russian anti-shipping missile. It's not even funny. It's not its order of magnitude. And how he wants to try to fight it, I don't know. But this is just my elaboration today to show you that those people better wake up and start looking at these numbers. This is the latest, and this is just from the July aggregate. It's already 17,240 killed of the armed forces of Ukraine, July only. Those people don't understand what they're dealing with. United States and NATO, they didn't deal with that level of casualties and KIAs ever. And what can I say? They better start looking take a very hard look into the face of reality. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee too. I would really appreciate this. And as always, my profound thanks to my wonderful patrons who allow me to do what I'm doing. And that was my kind of sit rap, if you wish, for today, guys. And enjoy the rest of the week. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.